Okay, this question says, Marta Coll and colleagues' 2010 Mediterranean Sea biodiversity census reported approximately 17,000 species. Okay, and this number is nearly double the number reported in Carlo Bianchi's and Carla Morri's 2000 census. So it increased, right? 10 years later, the census increased. A difference only partly attributable to the description of new invertebrate species in the interim. So basically, this difference is you can only partly say that the increase is because new invertebrate species were actually added. Okay, so there must be something else, right? Okay. Another factor is that the morphological variability of microorganisms is poorly understood compared to that of vertebrates. Invertebrates, plants, and algae, creating uncertainty about how to evaluate microorganisms as a species. So basically, they're like, we don't know how to evaluate these microorganisms, right? It's kind of hard to define the differences. Okay. Researchers' decisions on such matters, therefore, can be highly consequential. So basically, it seems like researchers are arguing kind of what species this one, which species this one, and they're not agreeing. Indeed, the two censuses reported similar counts of vertebrate, plant, and algae species. Okay, vertebrate, plant, and algae species. We remember that up here it said, compared to that of vertebrates, invertebrates, plants, and algae, microorganisms are poorly understood. So that means these guys are well understood. And then, so they're saying that reported similar counts. Okay, since these species, vertebrates, plants, algae species, are well understood, that's why they're similar counts, right? Okay, and what does this suggest? Okay, let's take a look at the answer choices. Option A, Coll and colleagues reported a much higher number of species than Bianchi and Morri, did largely due to the inclusion of invertebrate species that had not been described at the time of Bianchi and Morri's census. That sounds like it kind of could be, but not be described. Okay, that means they hadn't, these new species types, the names of these species hadn't existed yet. So new species names hadn't existed. So that's basically what this one is saying. Let's look at option B. Some differences observed in microorganisms may have been treated as variations within species by Bianchi and Morri. Bianchi and Morri are the ones that nearly double the number. Okay, they have less, right? May have been treated as variations within species. So basically they're saying they're still in the same species, but they're just different variations. But treated as indicative of different species by Coll and colleagues. Yeah, that makes sense, right? If Coll and colleagues treated it as different species, then they would have counted more species, right? Whereas Bianchi and Morri were just like, oh, these are just variations within a same species. So B looks pretty good, but let's look at the rest of the options. Option C says Bianchi and Morri may have been less sensitive to the degree of morphological variation displayed within a typical species of microorganism than Coll and colleagues were. Okay, so again, Bianchi and Morri are the ones that saw less, so they may have been less sensitive to the degree of difference. I mean, you could maybe make a case for that, but there's nowhere in the passage that says that they don't know as much or they're less sensitive, right? It's just saying that you don't really understand how to evaluate them, but not that you didn't even know they were there, right? So C doesn't look as good to me as the other ones. And then let's take a look at D. The absence of clarity regarding how to differentiate among species of microorganisms, okay, that seems pretty good, may have resulted in Coll and colleagues underestimating the number of microorganism species. So let's check. Did they underestimate? No, Coll and colleagues reported nearly double the number, right? So they didn't underestimate. This word makes this entire answer wrong, right? So one word can make an entire answer choice wrong. This one's we don't like. C we also didn't like because we said less sensitive. This is also kind of something to be wary of. There's nothing in the passage that said less sensitive, right? So we're going to cross out C. B, some differences may have been treated. B seems like everything we talked about, right? They talked about highly contentious differences. So that's why we could say maybe some say are variations and some say are wholly different species, and that could account for why they're different. So B seems pretty good. And then A reported higher number of species due to the inclusion that had not been described. So A was basically saying these species hadn't even existed yet, but that's not true, right? It said the difference is only partly attributable to the new species in the interim. So this is basically saying this phrase only partly attributable is saying that there's something else, but this option A is just saying that it's largely due, and we see largely and partly, so these two don't agree. So the correct answer is option B.